Hi, this is Patricia Stepler, and I want to welcome you to Win Win Women and to your show that's called Your Inside Power, where we are trying to help you to understand that you have a lot of powers within you that you can start to create or co-create the reality of what you want in life. So last week I started talking about life as being a mind game. And this is part two of that. I didn't quite finish the information I wanted to share with you, so I want to give it to you today. But last week, just to review, the show I had, we talked about how you are in control of your thoughts and you're in control of your results. And I gave you this quote by Raymond Holliwell that if all conditions are the results of our actions, and all our actions are the outcome or the fruit of our ideas, then our ideas most determine the conditions in our daily life. So basically saying the conditions we have in our daily life are a result of all the thoughts and the actions that we have taken in the past. And if we want to change our results, we have to change our thoughts and our actions in the future to create the life that we really want. So we talked about how every idea is a mental picture. And just like an inventor, we first get this idea, we think of it in our mind. And then as we continue to focus on it, we drive it into our subconscious mind because our subconscious mind controls our actions. So today's lesson, you see, there are laws of the universe that are controlling everything around us. And one thing, when we talked about gravity, if you see something fall from a building, it's going down, it's not going up. And we can see that because we see the gravitational pull. We can't really see gravity, so to speak, but we see the results of gravity. With our thinking, we can also see the results. But again, we don't see how it's all happening, but we have to understand the process because the results we get in life are the results of our thinking. So the laws do not question or challenge the picture. It takes whatever it's given. And this is why, if you want, this is an easy one to look at. If you think about your bank account, and if you think about the end of the month's coming and I'm running out of money, and you constantly have that picture of the lack, you are really telling the universe that that's what you want. You want to have lack. Now, we all know that's not what you want. But you see, the universe doesn't know, and it doesn't understand, I don't want this. When you say something, it just does it. So we have to start shifting our thought pattern. Simple thing to do. Instead of worrying or being stressed over the end of the month coming, and you think you don't have enough money, be grateful. And when that bill comes in and you pay that bill, you just say, I'm so grateful I have the money to pay this bill. I'm so grateful there's plenty of money in my account to take care of this bill. And you see, when you shift that, you're shifting the vibration that you're in. And you see, every thought we have is on a frequency. And so if we need to alter our results, we have to shift to a different frequency. And you see the difference? It just feels different. If you're worried about money and you're worried because there's not enough money at the end of the month, but then you switch it to being grateful that you have plenty of money when the bill comes in to be able to pay it, and being grateful that you can pay your electric bill. And you see, when you shift that, you're shifting your frequency and your feeling and your emotion. And that's very important to be able to shift the results. So build the picture that you can't do something, and then you plant that picture. Build the picture that you can do something, and then you plant that picture. So you're planting whatever picture it is that you want. And every time you allow that fear or doubt to come into your mind, then that's what you're creating. So I was just thinking a few minutes ago, I was getting ready to try to give you some illustrations. But you see, every thought we have causes a reaction. And when we look at the complications in our world today and things that are going on in our worlds, we might say, well, I didn't picture this, and how am I a part of this? And if we say that we create our own reality, or we're co-creators of our reality, am I really part of something negative that's happening? So let me illustrate this way. If you remember, and maybe you're a kid like I did, and you had the action reaction, they were like 5 little balls together, and you pulled the one up in the end and you let it go, and it bounced the one at the opposite end. Now the ones in the middle were still in harmony with the vibration. They just didn't move into action, right? But they were still in harmony. So when we see things happening in the world, or we see things happening in our own world that we think, well, I didn't ask for that, inadvertently, we may be connecting with it on that vibrational level. You see, we might be one of those ones in the middle that doesn't really move, but our frequency is still in vibration with it. We just didn't move out and act on it. So, we have to decide and understand that whatever we have asked for, whether we wanted it or not. And everything today is a reflection of your past experiences and your past thoughts. And so to be able to change and move forward in your life, you have to be willing and able to change your thoughts and your actions. Now, actions come again from the subconscious mind. So we have to be able to build the image of what we want and implant it into our subconscious mind so that we will actually go in and do what it is that we want to do. So you have no one to congratulate or to be upset and blame, but yourself for what you have or do not have today in your life. And sometimes it's because we have not been willing to study and do the things that we need to do to develop ourselves and to become the person we need to be in order to accomplish our goals that we want. But everything you have attracted into your life. And sometimes it's just a matter of changing our thoughts about that. I read this story, and I believe it was by Neville Goddard. And it was about a lady. Yes, it was in a book called Your Invisible Power. And there was this lady, and she did not think that her boss liked her. And she always saw her boss as, being nasty to her and, not liking her work and kind of being dismissive of her. And so Neville Goddard told her, well, what you need to do is to start thinking and shifting the way you think about your boss, and start in your imagination building this image of him complimenting you and being very pleased with the work that you're doing and so forth. And so she did. And, within a very short amount of time, and I'd have to read the story again to find that out, but in a very short amount of time, the boss was actually treating her as she wanted him to and complimenting her on, what she was doing. And so that's what we have to do. We want to build a better relationship with somebody. Change the way you interact with them. So often, and I do DISC profiles, which is a way of determining there's 4 main different personalities, and then a whole bunch of, combinations of those 4. One of the most valuable things about having a DISC test, and if you're interested in it, just let me know. But one of the most valuable things is we start to understand who we are, and we understand who other people are. And sometimes when we don't understand somebody and we think we're having a difficult time with them, it's because they're of a different personality than we are. And so what we need to do is to start shifting how we think about that person. Because prior to that, you may have thought there was something wrong with them and they weren't, doing a very good job and things like that. But understand that it's just they maybe are a different personality than you are. And so when we shift the way we think about somebody else, and we inadvertently or unconsciously, because we've shifted the way we think about them, we start treating them differently. And you see, when you start treating somebody differently than what you have been in the past, they automatically have to start treating you differently. And so it becomes a win-win for both people, because you start interacting differently and it forces them to interact differently with you. Try it sometime with somebody that you're having a difficult time dealing with. And when you can do that and you take time to really study and embrace these ideas, you will see your life start to turn around. But we cannot expect negative ideas, negative vibrations, and negative feelings to then produce something very positive in our life. And I really want you to start to be in tune with how you're feeling. Because you see, when we're not feeling great, that means we have a lot of negative ideas running around in our mind. And I think last week I mentioned, there are 10,000 to 60,000, depending on who you read about, but we have all these thoughts running through our mind all the time. You see, our mind never stops. And thoughts travel very quickly. And so our mind never stops thinking. And so what thoughts are running through your mind? And when you're feeling good, you can count on the fact that there are very positive thoughts running through your mind. But days when you're not feeling good, there's a moment during the day when you're not feeling good, you have some kind of negativity and negative thoughts running around in your mind. So let me just tell you the power of the thoughts and the words that you say to people. In a book I read, which was about personalities, actually, it was dividing the different personality types. There was a story about a former Major League Baseball player. His name is Jim Sundberg. And Jim Sundberg played for Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers. And after his baseball career, he did a lot of speaking. And he was speaking in a prison one day, and he decided to tell a story about when he was a child. And he started out by saying, when he was a young boy, his father and he would go into their backyard and they would toss the baseball back and forth. And he said one day he overthrew his dad, and he thought his dad would be a little bit upset with that. And his dad just looked at him, he said, "Son, anybody who can throw a baseball like that is going to play in the major leagues someday." And he said sometimes they would do batting practice in the backyard. And so one time he swung the bat, but he missed the ball, but he had a really nice swing. And again, he thought his dad might be upset, but his dad said, "Son, anybody can swing a bat like that is going to play in the major leagues someday." He said another time they were out there in the backyard and he hit the ball and it went flying through the air and right through the next door neighbor's window. And he thought his dad would be very upset. But his dad said, "You got it, son, someday anybody can hit a ball like that is going to play in the major leagues someday." And he said, "So really," he said, "there was nothing for me to do when I grew up but to play in the major leagues." Well, after he was done speaking, one of the prison inmates came up to him, and he was shackled in his arms and his legs. And he said, "Mr. Sundberg, I had a dad kind of like yours too. He told me that I was no good and I'd probably never amount to anything. And someday I'd probably end up in prison." He says, "I guess I fulfilled my dream for him too." You see, the words you say matter. And the words you say make a difference. And not only do the words you say make a difference, but the feelings and the vibration that you're in makes a difference, even when you're interacting with somebody else. Because you see, people pick up on your vibration. That's their intuition. And so you can tell when somebody's not having a good day without ever talking to them, because you're picking up on their feelings. You can tell if somebody doesn't respect you or like you because they're picking up on that intuitive feeling. You see, everything is vibrating. So you need to really watch your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. So you have to understand that Whether you know it or not, your ideas, your mental pictures give you the ability to produce that. Now, I love this book called The Science of Getting Rich. And in The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wallace, who is the author of this, states this hypothesis. And this is his hypothesis, that there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. So there's this thinking stuff there. It's all around us. It's omnipresent. It's in all places at all time in the same amount. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. So you come up with this idea and you think about it and it produces it. Kind of reminds me of, if you ever saw any of the Harry Potter movies, and Dumbledore puts his wand to his mind and he pulls it out and spins it into a bowl, and it's producing a picture. That's kind of what it is like. You take this thought and you put it out there in this thinking stuff, and it produces that for you. So he goes on to say, man can form, or anybody, man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon the formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. Isn't it marvelous? So we can think about what we want, and then we can cause it to be created. Just like Jim Sundberg's father created that thought pattern in his son, that what he was doing, he could become a Major League Baseball player someday. He created that thought pattern. And you see, it became so a part of Jim Sundberg, there's nothing for him to do when he grew up but to be a Major League Baseball player. And then the same as that prison inmate. Two different thoughts, one desired, one not so desired, but it produced that thought because it was put in that substance. And for those of you who have heard my story, my son did that with a scholarship. He put that thought in that substance and produces a scholarship. Same when I earned a diamond ring. I put that thought in that substance, earned a diamond ring. I put my thought in that substance and got a job as a corporate trainer. You see, there's all kinds of things that we do. And if we don't understand what we're doing, we cannot duplicate them. And that was part of, what I had done. Even though I'd done a few of those things in my life, I couldn't duplicate it because I didn't know what I was doing. My son couldn't tell you how he got that scholarship because he did not know. He was not aware. But once you become aware, you can have that happening all the time. So we have these thoughts going around in our head. We have to be very careful of what thoughts we're going to accept, because we don't consciously think them all. Remember, we would be exhausted if we thought of 10,000, let alone 60,000 thoughts every single day. So if you're thinking predominantly of lack and limitation and poverty, that's what you get. And there's all kinds of stories I have read from various different books about people who, were afraid that they'd end up with no money. So they squandered money away and they lived like a pauper. And then at the end of life, they could have been a millionaire. They could have lived a great life, but they were so afraid that they would end up with no money that indeed that's the way they lived their life. So as you think, so is it. So be very cautious of what you think. So all results are because of your thinking. All results you have started with thought, because remember, that's the first thing. We start with a thought and then we produce that thought. But sometimes, because we don't believe that we are the cause of our thoughts, we tend to blame others or play the victim. Okay. And we think that we need to blame somebody else for what we have ourselves caused. And we think in God's good time, things will work out. Have you ever heard somebody say that? If God wants me to have it, this will happen. And if you don't believe in God, whatever that source power you have, whatever you do believe in, that if it's supposed to be, it will happen. And you know what? We have to be part of that. We have to realize that we are co-creators. So some think things will get better. Things will get better over time. Things will get better. Things will get better when we change our thoughts. So I read this in a book. If your thoughts are unanswered, it is your fault. Because perhaps if our thoughts are unanswered, it's because we are not thinking in the positive. We're thinking in the negative. We're thinking of what we do not want instead of what we do want. So once you realize what the law is, you enjoy and you benefit from it. And, I can't wait in the next few weeks. We're going to bring on some other guests. And I've just heard some wonderful stories about how they've used their inner powers to create the life they want, and some great stories about what they saw in others. But our realization determines what we manifest in our life. What we can realize in our mind determines the results we get. And just like this book is called The Science of Getting Rich, okay, it's a science of getting rich, science of thought. We have a science of thought in our lives. And so it works the same for everybody. It doesn't pick certain people that it's going to work for. It's working for everybody. And, when you start to understand it, you can cause all kinds of things that you want to be created in your life and things you want to manifest. And you just have to believe that you can do these things. And again, be aware of your emotions, because your emotions are either helping you or they're detrimental to you in creating what you want and in getting what you want. And that you got to stamp out that doubt and worry and fear that we have and move forward. You see, once we get an idea and we start to build that image, then it's time to move forward and start to create that in our lives. And when we get that idea and inspiration and inspired action to take, for goodness sakes, take it. Don't delay, take it. You're getting that inspired action for a reason. So take it. So when you change your thinking for the better, then you change your life. And when you change your thoughts, and you must change your thoughts to precede that change in your life. You see, the same thoughts, it's that definition of insanity. If you continue to have the same thoughts, you're going to produce the same results. So in order to get a different result, you must change your thoughts. And it all starts with thinking. So when you improve or enlarge the pictures that you create in your mind, you improve and enlarge your life. It's really that simple. Now, saying that it's that simple is one thing. Understanding it and doing it is another. You see, this isn't really rocket science. It isn't really complicated, but we're so programmed. And I talked last week about your spiritual DNA was perfect when you were born, but it's been so virus infected that we don't realize the simplicity of this, and we start to overthink it. But you see, the universal mind and the universe wants for good. And so, and it likes order and sequence. But sometimes we get that out and we start to shift what would be orderly for the universe. So awareness is an upward spiral to greater expression. And you see, the universe wants us to be able to move in that upward spiral for expansion. In fact, spirit is nudging us all the time for expansion, but so often we ignore that. So all failures are due to taking the sides with the finite. All success is taking sides with what's in us. That's why developing your inside powers is so important, because all successes come from taking the sides of our inside. We have the answers inside of us. We just have to draw them out. So you must study, you must plan, and you must build the mental image of what it is that you want. And then create from that some type of idea or some type of sketch of a plan, knowing that you only know so much. So you have to come up with a plan. You have to start moving into action, but be aware that there's often another path you're supposed to take. So when a roadblock goes up in your way, you see, the path to success is never a straight line. And it's never a straight line because that's our thinking. Okay, this is what I need to do. And if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, then I will be successful. But that's not the universe's way. And you see, oftentimes when a roadblock gets put in our way, or we get discouraged by something because something didn't go the way we thought it should, it's because there's another way. And that's like a message from the universe that that wasn't the plan. That's not the way that's going to take you to that success. And so we have to be willing and open to, instead of being discouraged and depressed and upset because it didn't work, to realize, oh, there's something better out there. And that's often what it is. You see, you maybe had a good idea, but there is a better idea out there. And it may take a little time for it to come around, might not come that next day or even that next week. But if you hold on to the belief and the vision of what it is that you want, that idea will come, and those people and resources will come into your life every single time. It does not fail. So plant the idea and nurture the desire, go into action. And when you get an inspired action, for goodness sakes, take it. And then you'll reap what you sow, and you will reap abundantly, just like you plant a seed and an apple tree comes forth from that seed. But from that one seed of the apple that you have, an apple tree, you have thousands and thousands of apples over the years that come from that one seed. It's abundant. And the universe wants you to be abundant. So thinking creates the desire and the ideas, and then use the universal powers within you and around you that permeates everything at all times to attract into your life what it is that you want. So for more information, I've put some information in the chat, and we have, how you can get in touch with me, some of the things I speak about, some of the resources that I have, and I have my Calendly link there for anybody to get in touch with me, as well as how you can find me on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, and I want you to be the magic in your dreams.